Hi, I'm Michael. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an investor, improv artist, and soon to be a terrible stand-up comedian. But as always, I'm your TV. I'm a TV host and your host right now for what we call the Second Scene podcast. It is a Dweebs Global production. Dweebsglobal.org is where you can go for free mentorship. Anything from resume writing to mental health. They have people around the world. It is completely confidential and it is completely free. So today I'm here with Haui. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Haui's first scene was as a performer. He trained as an actor and then joined the Shaw Festival of Canada, the second largest repertory theater company in Canada. His second scene encapsulates his work as a creator. The work is interesting as it started as a hobby and now he gets to do it professionally, which is kind of what we all dream to do. Take our hobby and make it our main form of income and daily activity. So was that a relief when you got to transition that way?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like we're always transitioning in our art form. I'm sure you feel the same, and in the work that you do, it sounds like you do a lot as well. And I think having the repertory theater, which is where I started, and where we surprisingly we have two big companies here in Canada, but there aren't many of them. I can only think of one in the United States, the Oregon Shakespeare Company. And so when we're sort of sitting on rocky territory in a theater world, I realized I needed to keep my other skills going, which I'd always sort of dabbled from a very young age of keeping my photography and my filmmaking alive. But it wasn't until about 2017 that I made a big shift into filmmaking and projection design and visual arts, which is the bulk of the work that I do now. I still do perform as an actor, but I love the agency that I have as a creator to not be waiting by a telephone. And I can take my future into my hands, literally.
Got you. We're definitely going to talk about Mixed Up later on today. And having seen, you sent me the questionnaire yesterday, so I saw some of the film, and I could definitely tell that you're not just one type of artist. You cover a lot of bases.
Well, I'm not just one type of person either. Like being someone that occupies multiple spaces is a personal journey, and it's a professional journey too. Being someone that's mixed race and someone that does mixed media. My DNA is mixed up, as is my work.
Right. Well, when did you first start performing? What age did you want to be a
performer? Oh my God. I sort of have lines that I want to see lines in the sand that I draw. So I started when I was about 5. I started professionally when I was about 9 or 10. And I only marked that by like when I was paid to do it. But I think I always sort of took it very professionally from a very young age. So started in the UK where I was born.
Okay.
You can't hear it anymore because my accent is mixed up.
It's completely, that's completely gone. Would never have guessed that. Yeah.
And so I started very young in musical theater, and then thought I sort of kept that going. And then when I graduated high school, I just assumed to be an actor, you had to study acting, and was actually torn because I had an offer to study fine arts at Emily Carr, which is the best art school in Canada on the West Coast, where I was raised. And I had a friend that came to me and said, like, Howie, don't study art in the sort of university level. It'll kill your love of it, which I found it was such an interesting thing for someone to say to me, that education will take away your joy of things. And so keeping your work as a hobby is a wonderful way of making sure the light doesn't dim in your creative process.
So you started very early. Was this something your parents got you into? I mean, at the age of 5.
Oh, it's so funny. I feel like my parents never pushed it on me, but were very, welcome to, my mom especially. My dad, I think, just sort of Like we'd go to the pantomime in the UK, and he'd just come because he didn't want to stay at home alone. But yeah, they sort of introduced me to pantomime and dance, and I'd always sort of been very I was always in what's the opposite of introvert? Extrovert. So I don't so yeah, it was just in my nature to be very playful and wanting to entertain. And I think part of that was also because I was judged quite a bit when I was younger for being queer, and I think it was my way of going, you can make fun of me for being queer, but look at my talent. Look at what I can do. And it won people over, which thank God was was the case, because otherwise I would have been beaten to a pulp, literally. So yeah, that was sort of the beginnings of it all, was in that sort of, they say, show me the child of 7 and I'll show you the man. And that was like a big definition of who I was being a performer. And I think there was about a week where I wanted to be a magician, as one does.
I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think pretty consistently, it's always been sort of in my DNA to be in the arts.
Got you. So you knew you were gay from a very early age.
I did, yeah. And then you don't really need to sort of address it until puberty, because before then there's no reason that it comes up socially, aside from, horrible children in a playground trying to out you, which
Right.
you can just sort of brush off at that age. But I would say when it was like 12, 13, I really had to deal with it. And then, I've likened being mixed to coming out of the closet as well, because I'm always coming out about, who are you? What are you? What do you look like? This, but you're not that. And being queer was the same. Like there's always stages of coming out. I think I'll be coming out for the rest of my life in some regards, but
Got you.
you sort of have to fall in love with that process.
My brother's gay, and I remember when he came out of the closet to me, I wasn't surprised, but I also felt bad that he had gone so far the other way to try to disguise it, dating
Right.
like the head cheerleader of like his high school, and always trying to talk the game just to, yeah, I'm sure that had to have been hard, and the fact that he felt like he had to hide it for so long.
Yeah, it's very personal, that journey for everyone. So
Mhm.
it is weird when you come into an industry like the arts, and people sort of try to group everyone the same way. Like everyone's coming out stories the same, and it's like, no, it's not. And every gay film is about coming out. I'm like, that is not our only experience, because it's so rich and so diverse and beautiful. But
Right.
I
Not what
think
you all do all the time. It's not just a constant.
yeah.
I see you. So you went on and you've transitioned over to becoming a creator. And I know one of the first feature-length films you worked on was Red Snow. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yeah,
What was
which
that?
was a really wild process. It was a film that was about connection, and how an Indigenous youth in the north of Canada goes to Afghanistan to fight in the war in Iraq, and flees from Afghanistan with a family into Pakistan. And so it was this wild cross-cultural film that used many, many languages, and it was amazing. Marie Clements, the director of that film, who I assisted at first, and then they sort of brought me on to do all the stills photography, and I created the EPK, which is an electronic press kit.
Okay.
That sort of it shares all the photos and the behind the scenes stuff. But it was an amazing, eye-opening experience of learning something as simple as Pashtun, which is the language that is one of the languages spoken in Afghanistan, means the people, and Inuit means the people. And so this Marie has this beautiful way of showing the humanity in all of us, that we are not divided by our identity, by our nationality, that we are human, which is such a simple concept when we all think about it, but we are so divided right now of our identity. And I worry that identity politics are, are separating us too much.
I could not agree more. I could not agree more. What was something that surprised you when you were making the film that you completely threw you off guard and you're like, oh my God, I did not know that. This was a huge learning experience.
Well, it was wild to shoot the film. We shot in like plus 45 degrees and minus 45 in the same shooting schedule, which was pretty wild to be in like full on snowsuits. And then, we wanted to not be wearing anything when it was so hot. And we actually shot in the interior of BC, British Columbia. And we were right near one of the residential schools, which I'm not sure if you know what's happening around that in Canada.
No.
The residential schools were a horrific institutionalized way of basically cultural genocide. They were schools to get the Indian out of the child. And the last one closed in 1996 when I was 6 years old. It's so wild that happened. And
explain that in more detail. I'm not following. To get the Indian out of people? What is that?
Well, they didn't want, it was cultural genocide in Canada. They didn't want Indigenous people here. And so they put young Indigenous youth in schools to colonize them.
Wow.
And I'm surprised you don't know about this, actually. I thought it was pretty international news, but no. We've uncovered upward of 5,000 bodies that were at these old residential schools. These bodies have been unearthed.
Wow.
Of youth, of it's really awful, actually. And where Canada's journey through this Truth and Reconciliation Act is, it's uncovering a lot of ghosts in the closet that, to this day, the Vatican and Italy will not acknowledge their culpability through the Catholic Church. And on Red Snow, it was so eye-opening because we shot the film about 5 minutes away from this residential school. And so for me, it was like, it was so incredible because we were finally given the opportunity to shed light on Indigenous stories in our country. But I kept, every day I'd leave set and drive by this school and go, whoa, what is going on in this country? That this sort of double, it felt like it felt so strange that we were creating this film to honor a community, and yet we're still on this land that treats them like second-rate citizens. It's so wild.
I'm shocked right now. It's not something I've ever heard of, and yeah, I definitely want to look more into that. That's like you said, it's wild. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to, make this session about. I'm not trying to derail the conversation, but it came up, and it's all well to be an artist, and people think, it's our job to just create beautiful things. And I go, no, but I want to create work that reflects the world that I live in. And it's hard sometimes to think what is beautiful inside of the bleakness. But I guess that is part of my job, is to I sound so Christian saying this, and I'm not at all, but it's to shed light and try to find the beauty, which is really hard. It's really hard to do that.
I'm sure it is. I can't believe how recent this was still going on. That's,
oh my God, right? Like, yeah. It's mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, but I guess you study a lot of our history, and it's amazing how recent so much of it is. It's Yeah, it's unbelievable. You read the history books and you're like, that was 500 years ago. And you're like, no, that was, 70 years ago. And there's still people that, are alive that went through it and we're on the other side of it.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Where can people check out Red Snow?
So Red Snow is available on um, woo, many places. I believe Elevation Pictures just picked it up for its US release. So it's available on iTunes, YouTube. Um, I don't know if it's on Amazon Prime yet, but in Canada, it's on CBC Gem.
Okay.
And yeah, if you go to redsnow.ca, there's all the information should be there.
Okay. Perfect. So then after Red Snow, you directed, pretty much started. I mean, it's the film is about you mixed up like that. That must, I mean, you can't call it anything but a passion project, I'm guessing. And I mean, that was just, it's you shared all of you.
Um,
How did that feel? Just knowing that the world was going to see every nook and cranny of you.
it's again this wonderful, scary duality of catharsism or catharsis and huge vulnerability to explore your own story. But there's this wonderful part of documentary where, well, I can't even say it's documentary because it feels like this mixed up manifesto of so many different worlds of theater and film and opera and music and animation. But it was a wonderful exercise in form and how any form you sort of borrow from many different worlds. And so, a lot of people have seen it and gone, whoa, I don't know how to describe it because it's so many different things. And that was really the intention, was to explore my mixed experience through the lens of many artistic forms. And it's been really eye-opening to get the response from people,
Right.
of through the whole process. It took me, it made me realize, to be universal you have to be so specific, and in being so specific you can actually resonate with a lot of different people. And so it's nice that people have said, oh my god, I saw so much of myself in you. And I go, well, it's so wild how the connective tissues happen between people that on the surface have very different narratives and very different perspectives, but there's a commonality in that.
Yeah, we can all relate to each other in some way if you explore it enough. We
Yeah.
all have similarities, no matter how different we all think we might be.
Right.
And again, you wish more of the world would realize that and see that. There'd be a lot more
Totally.
acceptance. You really go into your childhood and what your childhood was like growing up with your parents. Your parents are very supportive up until a point. Your dad, at
Yeah,
least.
they've always been supportive, but I think dealing with the realities of, you can, when you're dealing with a queer child, there is obviously acceptance, but when you're actually dealing with the realities of their lived experience, that's another deck of cards entirely. And I think when I found my partner, it was, I was grown up now, and that scared my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And but I understand that now. I don't judge them for that, just because it's scary to see your child grow up and go into the world. It's like mother hen syndrome. I don't even, I guess it was an irony that I wanted to point to, was everything that my parents went through being in an interracial couple and rejecting, pushing against society's wanting to, be homogenous. They were rejecting all of those ideas. And then fast forward to me being in a queer relationship and them showing resistance to that. I
Mm-hmm.
sort of was like, that there's this weird irony at play here, that these two people who have raised me, who are so such beautiful humans can be judgmental of, you know, what I'm going through. It's
Mhm.
and I think that just really points to how we we can have the best of intentions as humans, but we all sometimes, you know, have flaws, and that's what makes us human.
Right. Right. So what was it like to really like explore your childhood? Did you learn a lot? Was there a
Mm.
lot you did not realize while you were going back through
I
it?
think it's interesting in the pandemic because we had a lot of time on our hands, a
Mhm.
lot of people, and ironically, people say that, you know, artists aren't an essential, and yet everyone went to their tablets, everyone went to their computers and watched Netflix. So people came to artists, just gonna say, and
Very true.
but I think I know a lot of people in my circle sort of because of we're alone, we're overthinking, we're sort of looking at ourselves in the mirror a lot in this time, and um, and I think it reminded me how much alive my youth is still in me. Like I carry that little. You look at the trailer and there's little Howie, and I go, oh, he's still there. Like I've kept him alive, and I think that's the challenge as we grow older is how do we keep that optimism alive? I'm gonna say my child is my optimism. And so that was it was, I guess, refreshing to learn um, how he's still there with me.
Hmm.
Um, and looking at that old footage, you know, that was really one of the ways in for creating this piece was I was lucky enough to have that old footage, and then it sort of built from there to move into I made a little animated version of myself as well, which was wild being up at 3, 4 in the morning creating stop motion animation, which it was just it was so much fun
Hmm.
on having this time when a lot of people were frightened, you know, with the state of this pandemic in the world. And I was like, oh, yay, I've got a window. I've got this time to create. And I was fortunate enough to have a network that was interested in premiering the film.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I created for about 4 months at home and really, really wanted to premiere the film in the summer of 2020, just because so much of the message of the film was so pertinent to what was happening in the United States and for the Black community. And and you know, with any network, they have a schedule. So I had to wait, which was unfortunate, but we premiered on November 11th, 2020.
Okay.
And then in the United Kingdom earlier this year, and Australia is coming up, and we're doing festivals in the United States. So yeah, we're sort of getting the film out there, which is scary in a way because it's out of my hands now, and
Mhm.
you know, I've got an amazing team and support around me that is backing the film. So it's been a wild journey. I didn't think it was possible in a pandemic to make a feature film. So I was like, we did it.
Right.
Like, who knew?
Well, it is very professionally done, very crisp, very clean. It's beautifully done. So
Thank you very much.
yeah, yeah, no doubt about that. The pandemic, in a lot of ways, it allowed me to explore the arts like I had never explored them before as well. So I think that the pandemic, I think, did that for a lot of people. It
Yeah.
found a way to take advantage of the situation that we were all in.
Hmm. And strange, like how unifying it is for everyone to like. I was thinking about this earlier on in the pandemic. I'm like, oh yeah, this is affecting like Obama. This is affecting the Queen. Like it's this universal thing that we cannot escape. and that's humbling in a strange way, that you go, okay, even though it's really hard, like everyone's going through this. So
and another way that we all can connect on it. I mean, we are all going through it. You're right. There was no escape of it.
yeah, yeah.
Unless
But
you went to Dallas. I went to Dallas. They seemed to not care. No masks.
oh
No
no,
anything. No.
no. It took a pandemic for me to be so busy.
Yeah.
Like it's a strange experience to go, oh, okay, everyone stopped working, and my work actually took off in a way.
Right. Right. Where you were stuck with yourself for
Yeah,
a good part of it.
yeah. So I've been like, I'm working on some other projects which are really exciting, and they're broadening what I do. Like I'd always sort of written and stuff, but to have some of my poetry produced, and I'm working on a libretto of an opera right now. So I'm literally expanding every day, which is frightening, but also really exciting.
Right. So you've kept yourself as busy. Did you fall into that?
Yeah, yeah, and not to just. I don't think I'm keeping myself busy to fill a void by any means. That, some people will like,
Right.
oh, I've got to consume everything, so I'm filling an empty hole. It's not that at all, but it's just, I think I realized when I started moving into more of my creative work, to actually step through the door that's being presented to me is the way it seems to be working, rather than, as I was saying before, like as a performer, you are the art. Like I was not judged necessarily, but as an actor, you are the art, and you are, there's a possibility of you being judged for your work, and yet when you are a creator, it's outside of yourself. And so there's an element of, you can step back, you can be objective. It's subjectivity to its audiences. It's easier to measure, I guess, because we can all look at Tom Hardy, for example, and you might go, oh my god, he's an amazing actor, and I go, I don't really like him. But then we can both look at a Kara Walker painting, and there's subjectivity to it. It's easier to measure, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, your film really put you out there, because you could be judged on the way it was directed, the way it was put together, your life itself. Like, I mean, it's you put yourself out there in every respect possible. So credit to you. That's wild, and that's scary, and all of that. So where can people find Mixed Up? I know I found it on Apple TV in the States. Where else can people find it?
It is available. Is it really on Apple TV in the States?
It's on Apple TV, but you do have to pay for, I think, Out TV. So it's an extra like $2.99 a month for Out TV.
That's so interesting. I thought it wasn't available in the States on Apple TV.
Yeah, no, you just have to pay for Out TV. And anyone who wants to watch it, you could totally do a 7-day trial of Out TV, and then just cancel it before the 7-day trial, and you can watch the movie. So
he's on it. Yeah, so it's on Apple TV, Amazon Prime, Out TV Go, Fruit TV, TV New Zealand, soon to be in Australia, South Africa, I believe. And if you can find all the information at mixedup.ca.
Okay, mixedup.ca, and I'll put that link underneath the video and underneath the podcasts.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining me today. So very interesting, and again, like, man, power to you for what you're doing. So it's
thank you.
Yes. So, and everyone out there, again, this has been a Dweebs Global production. That's why we do this podcast, dweebsglobal.org. They give free mentorship help from around the world, every language, no matter what you need, anyway, from resume writing to mental health, dweebsglobal.org. And we'll see y'all next week.